Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is Thursday morning and we made it through another recruiting cycle. Yes, today, the 2024 class is in the books. Yesterday was National Signing Day. So I'm going to give you guys my 5 most shocking moments of the 2025 recruiting cycle here in just a moment. I hope you were with us yesterday. We had a great live National Signing Day show. Shout out to JD Piquel and Charles Power for coming on and making it absolutely exciting, and we have some big things in plan for the future. I'm excited for you guys to find out all about that. A lot of big things coming to this channel in the future. So not a whole lot of action yesterday. I kind of missed that. The February signing day where we used to see anywhere from 6 to 10 new signees added to the class. Not so much anymore. Everything's so sped up and, everything gets done in the December signing day now. But we were able to reflect on some things and we had a great show. But yesterday was one major development that we were tracking though, and that was 5-star athlete Terry Bussey, the #1 athlete in America out of Timpson, Texas, right there in East Texas. And the question was, is Terry Bussey going to stick to his commitment to Texas A&M and sign with the Aggies, or can LSU and Georgia flip him? In the end, location, loyalty, that's what mattered to Terry Bussey. He stuck with Texas A&M. He signed with the Aggies, did not flip his commitment to LSU or Georgia. We thought that we might get to see a little bit of drama on signing day. We didn't. It's okay, though. Signing day was a moment of reflection. We had a great time. We got a little nostalgic about all the things that went on during the year. It was a phenomenal year for wide receivers, a great year for quarterbacks. We had a blast. All right, so now that the dust is settled, let's take a look at the final top 25 for the cycle. This is it. Dogs on top. You got Alabama finishing second, Ohio State third, Oregon landing Gatlin Bear, the 5-star wide receiver, chose Oregon over Michigan on Saturday. That put them over the Canes in that 4 spot. But Miami, a really strong finish at 5. Texas at 6, LSU in there at 7, and they're taking this momentum into 2025. We'll talk about that later. Number 8 is Auburn, 9 Oklahoma, and then the Florida Gators, who fell to 16 in the December signing day. They come back to 10 because they landed DeAndre Robinson, a bounce back from Texas, and also Jameer Grimsley, who was a short-term signee from Alabama. So there, the Gators get their top 10 class. And then you got Notre Dame, Florida State, Tennessee. You guys see it here. Michigan, they win the national title, but they only finish 15 in recruiting. Penn State at 16. And we see Nebraska and Kentucky, they round out the top 25. So there you have it. Those are your 2024 On3 industry rankings for this cycle. Whew. All right, let me know, comment section below, did your team have a great signing day, a good signing day? Did they hit a home run? Let me know, comment section below, how do you think your team did? All right, let's get into my 5 biggest surprises. The 2024 cycle had its ups and downs. We saw surprise commitments. We saw surprise decommitments, flips. We saw short-term signees. This cycle had a ton of drama. So let's break down the 5 moves that shocked me the most this year. But first, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. If you watched one of my videos covering the 2024 class, then go ahead and hit subscribe because we're doing it for all 2025. All right, my 5 biggest surprises. We're going to start in descending order, so we'll start with number 5. Offensive tackle Jordan Seaton to Colorado. A shocker on decision day. I thought, and I read it wrong, I thought it was going to be Tennessee, maybe Alabama, maybe Ohio State. Oregon, they were really confident. At one point, Jordan Seaton said that Oregon was his dream school. But the 6', 295-pound offensive tackle is now a Colorado Buffalo, and he is that crown jewel of the Buffs class. Coach Prime gets the most important recruit on his board. He said he needed offensive lineman. He went out and he got one of the best in Jordan Seaton. I think he makes an immediate impact. I think he battles for a starting job as soon as he steps on campus, which he already has. He's an early enrollee. So Jordan Seaton to Colorado, that's in my 5 spot. That was a pretty big shocker. Moving on to number 4, QB Julian Sayin ends up a Buckeye. And at first I thought maybe this is my biggest surprise. Julian Sayin enrolling at Alabama and then ending up at Ohio State had to be the biggest shocker of the cycle. But then I thought, if you told me 3 months ago, if Julian Sayin was going to be a Buckeye, I would have said the only way that could possibly happen is if Nick Saban retired. And that's exactly what happened. So the only way Julian Sayin would have flipped his commitment to Bama or from Bama is if Saban retired. And that's what happens. I mean, that's a surprise, but I wouldn't say it's the biggest shocker to me. But having seen Julian Sayin put on that Alabama uniform, he put on the helmet, he put on the pads, he participated in workouts as they were preparing for the playoffs. So for a brief period, he was coached by Nick Saban. But to see him do that and then enroll at Ohio State, it's pretty crazy, but it's a sign of the times. All right, number 3 on my list, defensive lineman Armando Blunt. He flips back to Miami. So follow me here for a second. In early December, Armando Blunt was the number 1 2025 defensive lineman in America. So he's going up to Tallahassee in early December. He arrives in Tallahassee as a Miami commitment in the 2025 class. He's leaving Tallahassee. He announces 2 things. One, that he's reclassifying up to 2024, and he's also flipping his commitment to the rival Florida State Seminoles. So this was a huge shocker because he'd been committed to the Miami Hurricanes as a 2025, flips, and now remember, the date of this is only about 2 or 3 weeks before the early signing period. So it looks like, hey, he flips his commitment to the rival FSU Seminoles, and he's about to sign with them. Well, guess what? On National Signing Day, he flips back. We see one of the most rare moves in recruiting, the double switch flip back, and it happens on National Signing Day. Armando Blunt inks with the Canes. That was my number 3 biggest shocker of the cycle. Moving on to number 2, we have safety KJ Bolden flips on National Signing Day. And I don't know what was more of a shocker here, him flipping on National Signing Day or actually just KJ Bolden committing to FSU in August over Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama. I mean, that was a pretty big shocker. But what he did on signing day shocked everybody because of the way that it went down. Remember, KJ said Florida State was his dream school. He committed to them in August. It all made sense. He saved his final official visit for FSU. He took all those others early. So he's in Tallahassee just 3 days before National Signing Day. He comes out of there, talks to reporters. He was not happy about people asking him about his commitment status. He made it sound like it was a sure thing until signing day when he flipped. And after he flipped, he said that he knew he was going to do that for about 2 to 3 weeks. So again, just out of nowhere, we did not see this one coming, not the way that it went down at least. That was my number 2 recruiting shocker of the cycle. But number 1 goes to who else but quarterback Dylan Raiola when he flipped to Nebraska. Now remember, Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia at the end of May. He recruited for the Dogs all summer. The summer months are the most important recruiting months of the cycle. And he was all dog. He was in Athens almost every big recruiting weekend. And he was a big piece of that class. So big that he transferred high schools. He was living in Phoenix, Arizona, went to Pinnacle High School, transferred to Buford High School as a UGA commitment, goes to Buford High School, plays his senior year, and leaves a Nebraska Cornhusker. Now, we all know the reasons why he flipped his commitment and why he changed programs. But in the end, I mean, for him to go from the back-to-back national champions to Nebraska, it had to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, shocker in the 2024 cycle. So let me know, comment section below. There were some big ones. DeMarcus Riddick, Cam Coleman was a big one. There were so many shockers. Justin Scott flipping, Jeremiah Smith sticking. You guys tell me, what was your biggest signing day shocker of the cycle? Let me know. 2024, the cycle is over. The recruiting class is done. The hay is in the barn, however you want to say it. We're moving on to 2025. We got a big show today. We're going to talk Auburn recruiting. We're going to talk some Florida Gator recruiting. We're going to talk Julian Lewis. All right, let's get to it. Auburn loaded up on elite wide receivers in the 2024 cycle. Now it's time for Hugh Freeze to turn his focus to stacking quarterback talent. I got Jeffrey Lee from Auburn live on to find out if the Tigers are in position to flip 5-star 2025 quarterback Julian Lewis from USC. But first, Auburn fans, hit subscribe for me to the On3 Recruits channel. We're going to have a blast this offseason. We need you to be a part of it. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in Jeffrey Lee from Auburn live. Now, we're going to talk 5-star Julian Lewis here in a minute. There's also a few other big names on the QB board that we're going to talk about, including KJ Lacey, who's committed to Texas. But first, a new QB offer just went out like minutes before we sat down to record this, and it goes out to Cutter Woods. He's the newest Auburn quarterback offer out of South Carolina, Westside High School, 6'3", 185. What's with the new offer? How did this get started between these two?
Fair question, Josh. This is a new name to Auburn fans, but it's certainly not a new name to Hugh Freeze and new quarterbacks coach Kent Austin. Both of those guys, while at Liberty, this kid, Cutter Woods, went the summer before his sophomore season and went to camp there. Well, they immediately offered the kid. So they've had some history with this guy. They've seen him kind of grow into, I think last year he threw for 2,500 yards, had a TD to interception ratio of 27-4. And that's coming off a sophomore season in which he threw for 3,000 yards and had a TD interception ratio of 28-5. So they've been following this kid for a couple of years at least. And then he pops onto the scene as far as Auburn fans are concerned on Thursday when Auburn offered him. So certainly a new guy to keep an eye on, and we'll have more on him soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of broke just before we sat down. So let's go back to 5-star plus quarterback Julian Lewis, who is committed to USC. Now, he reclassified. He's been to Auburn. Where is Hugh Freeze, Julian Lewis? How's this relationship developing?
Slowly. I think that's fair. Slowly. He's been to Auburn. He came to Auburn January the 20th, so late January was really his first visit that we've been able to talk to him. And even he admitted, it's kind of a new deal. It's kind of a developing relationship between him and Hugh Freeze. And let's don't forget, Auburn just hired a new offensive coordinator in Derek Nix. And we've seen some quarterback turnover since the departure of Philip Montgomery and since the arrival of Derek Nix. We saw Ryan Montgomery, a guy Philip Montgomery was very high on. He's from Findlay, Ohio. He kind of slid off the board. So you're seeing a kind of a revamped quarterback board with Cutter Woods now on it. Juju Lewis kind of being more prominent on the board since Derek Nix has taken over.
So let's move on. I want to talk about quarterback TJ Lateef. Really interesting name here. He's out of Orange, California, 6'2", 185, great-looking quarterback. Does Auburn have some traction here?
They do. And speaking of Derek Nix, this is kind of right up his alley because when he was at Ole Miss, he was recruiting TJ to Ole Miss. So there is some familiarity there with Auburn, or at least with Derek Nix and TJ Lateef. And Cole Pinkston actually talked to TJ a couple of weeks ago, and he's got legitimate interest, and he's planning on visiting Auburn. He's planning on visiting Ole Miss. I think that's two of the schools, I think, both of which have in common Derek Nix. So, but he likes the South, he likes the Southeast, and likes what Hugh Freeze has. He's certainly kept track of that wide receiver room improvement, 2024 class. So he's a guy that I'm keeping a close eye on as well.
Is he given a timetable on when he wants to make a decision?
Sometime before senior season. So in the summer, I think he wants to take some visits in the spring, maybe try to get it done in the summer.
All right. Now, we got to ask you about quarterback KJ Lacey. I know there was a lot of talk when Ryan Williams' recruitment was hot and heavy that, hey, maybe they could land them both. But KJ Lacey is still committed to Texas. Where do things stand with him on the Auburn board? Inside Scoop fans, college football season is wrapping up, and it also means that the NFL is winding down as well. But there's still some great games left in the season. And you know what's not great, though? Finding last-minute tickets. Finding last-minute tickets, it can be a nightmare. Do not let this be the way your 2024 goes. That's why I'm here to tell you about Game Time. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the big-time matchups. The Game Time app is great. It's easy to use, and it works in any city, any team. And you get the best price guarantee. Do not stress over getting into your team's favorite games anymore. There's only so many big games, and you need to get these tickets at the best prices. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money. Zone deals, all right? This is where you pick a section, and Game Time picks the seats for big savings. So here's what we're going to do. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Probably sliding. I think Auburn's best chance to flip KJ Lacey was to get Ryan Williams. And when Ryan Williams recommitted to Alabama and subsequently signed, I think Auburn's chances of flipping KJ Lacey went down, and maybe their interest as well. I think as far as Auburn was concerned, KJ Lacey's. It's not like Auburn's push for KJ Lacey might have depended on whether or not they got Ryan Williams.
Right. Well, so how do you see it playing out at quarterback? Because this is a crucial year, right? When you land a Perry Thompson and a Cam Coleman and you bring in the weapons that they have, I mean, you want to pair them with an elite quarterback. So right now, are we just really early in the process? Where are we at, do you think, in Auburn's quarterback recruiting?
Early, but I think only because Derek Nix is kind of coming in and revamping that board. A lot of these quarterbacks, Josh, you know well as anybody else, these quarterbacks like to commit early. Walker White committed to Auburn last February, early February, as a matter of fact. So, getting these guys on campus as soon as possible, these new guys that are on the board, getting them to Auburn's campus as soon as possible, trying to get one of these guys locked up, because this is a great year for Auburn in quarterback recruiting because you have that 2024 wide receiver class to sell. That's a great pitch to have for these guys, for these 2025 quarterbacks. And I know for Juju Lewis and for TJ Lateef, both of those guys have mentioned that these wide receivers, you got to have somebody to throw to. So it's an important class for Auburn to capitalize on that wide receiver class from 2024.
Yeah, it is an important class. I mean, like you said, Hugh Freeze, if he's going to succeed at Auburn, he's going to have some high caliber quarterbacks to do it. In this cycle is very important, and it looks like they got a jump start on some really good quarterbacks. Jeffrey Lee from Auburn Live, thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks for having me.
The Florida Gators signed the on-3 number 1 QB in the 2024 cycle, DJ Lagway. Now it's time to surround him with some elite wide receiver talent, and UF is wasting no time getting 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham on campus. We're going to talk about him with Keith Niebuhr from Gators Online. Also, 2025 QB recruiting is heating up. We want to hit on that as well. But first, UF fans, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're growing this thing. We need you Gator fans to be a part of it. All right, let's bring on Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. And Keith, we're going to talk 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham here in a minute, but I want to talk a little quarterback talk first. And I'm going to ask you about Ryan Montgomery, 4-star quarterback out of Findlay, Ohio. He's been to UF, and recently Chad Simmons is reporting that a decision could come within the next month. So wanted to know, what's your read on his recruitment right now?
Yeah, it feels like it's down to really 2 teams. I mean, he's got the 3 that he's mentioning, Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia. But anybody that's following recruiting closely knows that Georgia's also working on trying to flip Juju Smith from Southern California. He's from the state of Georgia. So the question is, if you're Georgia, do you ride that out? How long are you willing to wait for him? Would you take Montgomery now? When you add it all up, it just feels like that, based on Montgomery's timeline of wanting to commit maybe in the next month or 2, that probably favors Florida and South Carolina. So don't really know about the South Carolina side that much, but I feel like there's some optimism in Gainesville. He visited this past weekend, had another outstanding visit. Yeah. He likes it down there. He connects well with the staff, not only with Billy Napier, but with Ryan O'Hara, who is an offensive analyst, but for all intents and purposes is the quarterback coach at Florida. They get along great. They like the development of the quarterbacks. Well, I like the whole situation. And like you said, he's been down there multiple times, but it feels like it's really a toss-up at this time between Florida and South Carolina. Probably could go either way. Don't have definitively one way, or that he's leaning one way or the other, Josh. I don't. Others might, but I don't.
All right. Now, another name that's been on campus a number of times is Antoine Hill Jr. out of Warner Robins, Georgia. Yep. Number 7 quarterback in the country, number 76 overall. So he's a top 100 player. Do you think that UF is in good shape with Hill? What do you think?
Yeah, it really depends. So there's some unknown variables, obviously, Josh. Who's number 1 on the board, on the floor board? We don't really know. That's kind of information they don't want to get out there. Yeah, obviously last year you knew DJ Lagway was number 1 on the recruiting board, but now it's a little bit more. There's some nuance to it. In other words, if it gets out that one guy's the top guy, it might rub the other guys the wrong way. We don't know. So, but we know that Antoine Hill's certainly in that group of 3 or 4 top guys that Florida's looking at. I think Ryan Montgomery's probably a little bit more polished right now.
Right.
Upside wise, you got to like Antoine Hill's upside. I mean, he's tall, he's rangy. He told me, he said when he visited Florida, he said I even look like DJ Lagway. He says I play like him and I look like him. So he's a guy that also can run the ball. By the way, Ryan Montgomery's a terrific athlete too, who shines in basketball. So another good athlete. The question is now, again, where would Florida sit with him? We think if Florida put the foot on the gas with Antoine Hill, we think they'd have a real shot. We know Georgia Tech's highly involved. He's a former Colorado commit. We know that Texas A&M's involved. Georgia visited his school recently. Again, he's probably a down-the-line guy, we think, for them. But he's an outstanding prospect, too. But, again, I think he's more of a long-term projection. But, again, you've got Graham Mertz this year. He'll be going away. But then you have DJ Lagway. So if DJ Lagway starts a couple of years, you don't need anybody to play for a couple of years anyway. So it's really Florida could take a developmental guy this side. Personally, I think they're going to have a good shot to get one of these two guys, Hill or Montgomery, Josh. I don't know which one, but I feel comfortable in saying they've got a pretty good shot to get one of them.
All right. Now, the most recent offer went out to Matt Zollers. He's out of Pennsylvania, the number 14 ranked quarterback in America. Has he been to campus yet?
He has, but, he put out this top 4 and Florida wasn't in it. He's got Georgia's on him hard as well. We think that, he's high up the Georgia board. Obviously that Juju Smith thing is significant, but Penn State, he visited there recently. He's high on their board and vice versa. He has a brother, I believe, that's a player at Pitt. We think Florida is probably on the outside looking in with him, but he did visit.
Right. Okay. Seems like Montgomery and Hill probably, like you said, the top 2 most likely right now to end up in the class. All right. So, like you said, DJ Lagway already on board. He's the star quarterback. He's everything for that offense moving forward. So you got to get him some pieces. You got to get him some weapons. And 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham was in Gainesville recently. He's the number 2 ranked wide receiver in the country. The number 1 ranked wide receiver, DeCorian Moore, already committed to LSU. So he's the top available wide receiver. He's from Mississippi. Keith, what did he say to you when he left campus? What was his reaction to the UF visit?
Yeah, he had a great visit to Gainesville the other day, and it wasn't his first time there, Josh. He'd been there for a camp. He'd been there previously for a game. It's funny. I said, is the distance an issue for him? And he said, I've got a 10-hour window. He'll drive within 10 hours. And actually, Josh, for work, that's what I have. I'll go within 10 hours. After that, I'm done. And so I looked it up, and he's about 9 hours and 40 minutes from Gainesville. So it's within that 10-hour circumference, I guess. But he's also, within 30 minutes of Mississippi State, and he's closer to other schools. But he had a great visit to Gainesville. He likes the fact that they have DJ Lagway there. And obviously DJ Lagway, you would think in 2025 probably would be Florida's starting quarterback when Caleb Cunningham, if he picked Florida, would get there. He's got Florida in his top 12. He likes the receivers coach. He likes that Billy Gonzalez, Florida's receivers coach, has been so productive as a coach in terms of recruiting and then developing guys and getting them off to the NFL. Billy Gonzalez has a heck of a track record just at the University of Florida, let alone other places. So he likes all of that. Florida's in his top 12. He says he's going to officially visit down the road. Hey, man, I'm not in any hurry to make a commitment, he told me. Look, they're doing all they can do. He likes Florida a lot. They like him a lot. He's an outstanding young guy to talk to. He's bonding with people in Gainesville. But we have heard through the grind that while he says, Josh, hey, within 10 hours, I'm cool, we've heard that some people around him may want him a little bit closer to home. And so that's going to be an uphill climb for Florida. But look, they're in the ballgame.
Yeah. And next step is to get him back on campus. Do you think Caleb Cunningham will make a return trip to Gainesville?
I do. I mean, first of all, he's been there multiple times. So it's not like he's been there once and he says, I'm coming back. We hear that all the time.
Right.
And you never see the kid. So he's got a history of going there. And, he says, hey, look, I think they're in a good position to get an official visit. And, obviously you can take more official visits now than you used to be able to take. So that helps as well. And he seems like a guy that's going to really do his homework, take a lot of trips here, really get the lay of the land. So I do think, best guess, is he'll be back in Gainesville at some point.
All right. Well, really good start with QB recruiting and their shot at the number 2 wide receiver in America. Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online. Thanks for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.